$20,000. That's what grief looks like when it's converted to currency. That's what my grandfather's life amounted to in the end. A number on a document that trembled in my hands as I left the notary's office that autumn afternoon. Have you ever watched someone's face when they think you can't see them? When the mask slips, just for a moment, and you glimpse something ugly hiding behind their smile? I wish I could forget that moment. Sometimes I think it would be easier if I'd never known. I was a nurse with calloused hands and a calendar full of night shifts. My body always ached. My mind always raced. 20,000 felt like salvation. Like maybe I could breathe for the first time in years. Like maybe James and I could stop arguing about the electric bill in whispers at 2 a.m., both of us pretending. We weren't terrified of poverty. Grandpa Henry, God, his eyes were the kindest part of my childhood. He didn't buy my love with toys or candy. He earned it with wooden birds he carved by hand and stories that made the darkness retreat. He taught me to identify birds by their songs, while everyone else was too busy to notice them singing. He knew every constellation in the night sky. He knew me when no one else bothered to look closely enough. When the notary, this stern woman in a formal suit who smelled of expensive perfume, handed me those papers, I thought, this is Grandpa saying goodbye one last time. This is him still, taking care of me. I signed documents, stamped seals, answered questions mechanically, but my mind was elsewhere, swirling with memories and possibilities. The autumn air kissed my face as I walked home. Leaves crunched beneath my feet. The world felt new somehow, like I could remake it with my bare hands. I had such simple dreams. A washing machine that didn't sound like it was dying. A couch without springs that punctured your thighs. Maybe a week by the sea where I could forget about bedpans and medication schedules and the weight of other people's pain. I pictured James hugging me when I told him. I imagined his relief, his gratitude, the weight lifting from his shoulders. In my mind, he kissed my forehead and whispered, "Thank you," against my skin. We'd celebrate with cheap wine and takeout. We'd be happy, just for one night. I was so stupid, so blind, so desperate to believe I had a partner instead of a parasite. I heard them before I saw them, my husband and his sister, their voices slipping through our apartment door like poison. I froze, my hand on the doorknob, as the truth unraveled everything I thought I knew. "So, what do you think? Can we get her to hand it over?" James was saying, his voice carrying that edge I'd never noticed before. Or maybe I had, but I'd buried the knowledge so deep it couldn't hurt me. "Of course we can," Sarah replied, sounding so confident, so certain of my malleability. "Where's she going to go? You're her husband. Just say the money's for a shared goal, like starting a family business. She'll give it up." I pressed my palm against the wall to steady myself. The hallway tilted. $20,000. They were already dividing it between them like vultures tearing at something dead. "I just don't get it," James continued, his voice thick with entitlement. "Why'd her grandpa leave the money to her? Was there no one else? Like me, her husband? I'm supposed to manage the family budget." "You know she was his favorite," Sarah said, a note of bitterness in her voice. "He always loved her more. But the money, she's married, so it's not just hers, it's yours too." "Exactly," James jumped in, eager, hungry. "Ours, which means I'm entitled to it too. Otherwise she'll start acting like some saint, keeping it, all for herself." How do you describe the moment when love curdles inside your chest? When every memory rewinds itself, and you see all the clues you missed, the casual cruelties you excused, the red flags you painted white because you were too afraid to be alone. I stood there, paralyzed, as my husband discussed how quickly I'd crack, how my kindness made me an easy target. Sarah giggled, actually giggled, when James said, "Emily's too kind to resist for long." They laughed about Sarah's nail salon dreams, how my inheritance would fund her future. "I'm tired of being broke," Sarah said to my husband, "and this is too good an opportunity to pass up." What would you have done? Would you have screamed, thrown things, demanded answers? Or would you have done what I did? Gathered yourself into something small and hard and unfamiliar, something with teeth? I slammed the door loud enough to announce my arrival. Their faces, when I walked in, that flash of guilt quickly painted over with fake smiles. I'll never forget it. My husband, this man who had shared my bed for years, looked at me like I was an unexpected complication. "Hey Emily, you're home already," James said, trying to sound casual, while his eyes darted to Sarah. "We're just having tea, talking about some stuff." I walked into the kitchen and sat at the table, hiding every emotion beneath a mask of normalcy. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought they must hear it. "Yeah, I'm home," I said, my voice steadier than it had any right to be. "What are you talking about?" "Oh, nothing special," Sarah said evasively, avoiding my gaze like the liar she was. "James was just tossing around some ideas," she added, as if these ideas weren't about stealing what belonged to me. And then my husband winked at his sister, a small gesture, secretive, complicit, before turning to me with a smile that no longer reached his eyes. "We were thinking about how to best use your inheritance," James said so smoothly, so practiced. "It's basically money for our future, for the family. We need to plan carefully so it doesn't go to waste." I watched them perform their little play, these strangers I'd called family. My throat felt tight with unshed tears, but I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. "What ideas do you have?" I asked, and the words tasted like copper on my tongue. "Well, Sarah's got this great idea for a nail salon," James began, and I felt anger rising inside me like a tide. "She needs startup capital to get it going. We could help her out with part of your inheritance. It's an investment in our future, in the family." And there it was, Sarah's nail salon, the dream she talked about for years without ever taking a single concrete step toward it. Now suddenly my money made it viable. "What do you say, Sarah?" I asked, turning to her. "Do you really think I should give you part of my money?" Sarah looked up with a practiced expression of embarrassment, like a child caught sneaking cookies. "Well, Emily, I know it's your money and you can do whatever you want with it, but I've been dreaming of this salon forever. If you helped me, I'd be so grateful." The audacity of their performance made me sick. These people thought I was a fool they could manipulate. They thought my love made me weak. "I'll think about it," I said, and they exchanged glances, disappointed I hadn't immediately surrendered. In that moment, I saw how little they thought of me, how little they respected my autonomy. "Of course, Emily, take your time," James said, masking his disappointment with fake understanding. "We're not rushing you. Just make the right choice. For the family. The family." What a joke. What a beautiful lie I'd been telling myself. That night, after a dinner where James pretended nothing had changed, after he'd kissed my cheek and asked about my hospital shift, after he'd served himself food with hands, I suddenly couldn't bear to have touched me. I locked myself in our bedroom and stared at my reflection. There were no tears, just a burning clarity I'd never known before. Something was happening to me, something irreversible. I was becoming a woman I didn't recognize, a woman with edges, a woman who could see clearly for the first time. For days, I lived in a strange twilight. I went to work, cared for my patients, came home to a man whose touch now made my skin crawl. James brought me coffee in bed, asked about my shifts with newfound interest. I knew what it was. Fear. Fear that his ATM would walk away. Have you ever smiled at someone while planning your escape from them? It's a peculiar kind of performance. You feel like an actress in a play, where only you know the ending. Every night, while James slept beside me, his breathing deep and unbothered by conscience, I moved through our apartment like a ghost. I gathered documents, photos, essentials. I researched divorce laws until my eyes burned. I opened new bank accounts under my name only. I transferred my inheritance, all of it, before he could sink his claws into it. I was terrified, not of being alone, but of staying, of waking up in 10 years, hollow-eyed and empty-handed, with nothing to show for my life but the luxury of other people's dreams. The confrontation came as it had to. James brought up the money again while we sat. In front of the TV, his voice casual, but his eyes sharp with greed. "So, Emily, how's it going with the inheritance?" he asked, scooting closer to me on the couch. I felt a shiver of disgust run down my spine when he took my hand. "Everything's fine," I said carefully. "I've got it all sorted." He perked up noticeably. "Great. So maybe we should invest it somewhere. There are so many opportunities right now." I stayed silent, repulsed by his tone, by the cloying interest I had been too blind to notice before. "I haven't decided yet," I said finally. "I'm still thinking." James frowned, irritation flickering across his face. "Thinking? What's there to think about? Money should be working, Emily. It's silly to let it just sit there." He leaned in closer, and his cologne, once so comforting, made me want to gag. "You know, Sarah's at a point where she's so close to starting her business," he continued. "She could really use some financial help right now." I pulled my hand away. "So, you're suggesting I give part of my money to your sister for her business?" He tried to smile, but I saw the anger simmering beneath. "Not give, invest. It's for the future. If she succeeds, we all win. And if she doesn't?" I asked sharply. "What then?" James waved it off dismissively. Come on, don't be so negative. Sarah's got a good head on her shoulders. She's got it all planned out. She just needs startup capital, and you've got the chance to help her. In that moment, something snapped inside me. All my doubts, hopes, and attempts to justify his behavior crumbled. I looked at James and saw a stranger, greedy and calculating, ready to use me for his own gain. No, James, I said, my voice firm and clear. I'm not ready to share. This is my money, and I'll decide what to do with it. He jumped up from the couch, his face red with anger. What do you mean, not ready? Are you getting greedy now? Have you forgotten who helped you when you were struggling? Forgotten everything I've done for you? I stood to face him, no longer afraid. I haven't forgotten anything, James. I remember it all, and I'm grateful for your help. But that doesn't mean I owe you my money. You don't even need it, he shouted, his composure shattering. You're a nurse working for pennies. Sarah's got talent. She's got prospects. You should be thinking about the family, Emily. The family, I repeated, the word bitter on my tongue. Is that what you call this? You and your sister plotting behind my back, dividing up my money, thinking I'm some fool you can trick. James fell silent, stunned by my directness. He clearly hadn't expected me to push back like this. You were eavesdropping, he hissed, as if that were the crime. I didn't answer immediately. I just looked at him, letting him see all the pain and disappointment he'd caused. He couldn't hold my gaze and turned away. Yes, I overheard, I said finally. And I heard enough to know who you really are. He opened his mouth to justify himself, but I stopped him with a raised hand. No, James, no more lies. I know everything. I walked to the window and looked out at the city lights twinkling in the distance like tiny beacons of hope. But that hope was no longer tied to James. It was tied to myself, my future, my independence. You know, James, I said quietly, without turning around. I always thought we were partners, building our life together. But now I see you're not a partner. You're a leech. He stood in the middle of the room, angry and flustered. He'd lost control of the situation, and it infuriated him. I turned to face him one last time. I don't want to live in this lie anymore. That night, I lay awake in our bed, listening to James breathe beside me, feeling like a stranger in my own life. I knew what I had to do. My grandparents' old apartment had been sitting empty since they passed. I hadn't visited. Too many memories, too much grief. Now it beckoned like a lighthouse. One morning, after James left for work, I called a moving truck. I packed quickly, efficiently, taking only what was truly mine. I didn't leave a note. I didn't call. I just disappeared like morning fog. The apartment smelled of dust and faded memories when I first unlocked the door. Yellowed wallpaper, old furniture, photographs where everyone still smiled without secrets. This is where I'd been happy once. This is where I could be happy again. I opened every window, letting fresh air rush in to chase away the ghosts. Looking around, I knew there was work to be done. The place needed repairs, cleaning, new furniture, but I wasn't daunted. For the first time in years, I felt a surge of energy and purpose. I hired workers, ordered new floors, new walls, new pipes. I didn't save a penny. I poured my inheritance into transformation, into rebirth. With each wall that came down, each room that changed, I felt lighter, freer. My lawyer, a kind woman with shrewd eyes who seemed to understand without being told, helped me file for divorce. I wanted nothing from James except absence. Heal. Try to claim part of the inheritance, she warned me. Let him try, I said. It's already gone. The repairs took several weeks. During that time, I transformed the apartment, buying new furniture, hanging new photos on the walls. I created a space where the past couldn't reach me, where only I decided what happened next. When the renovations were complete, I sat alone at my new table with a bottle of wine and realized my inheritance was gone, all of it. But I wasn't afraid. I'd spent it wisely, on freedom, on myself. I took extra shifts at a private clinic. I worked until my feet ached and my mind quieted. I found rhythm in independence, in earning my own way. Sarah called once, her voice small and hesitant on the phone. Emily, she said, I'm sorry. We both are. We made a mistake. We regret what we did. I listened silently, feeling nothing. No anger, no pain, just a vast emptiness where those emotions used to live. We were wrong, she continued when I didn't speak. James misses you. He wants to talk. I hung up without a word. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. Some wounds aren't meant to heal back to what they were. I became careful with my trust, but never with my compassion. I still helped those who needed it. I still believed in kindness, just not blindness. I learned to value myself, to be strong and independent, to not trust blindly. Sometimes now, I look at Grandpa Henry's photo and whisper, thank you. Not just for the money, but for what it revealed, for what it saved me from becoming someone's fool, someone's resource, someone who didn't recognize her own worth. The money is gone now. Every last penny spent on building this new life. But the lessons remain, etched into my bones like scripture. I am stronger than I knew. I am worth more than they believed. I am capable of starting over. Do you know what true freedom feels like? It's not the absence of struggle. It's the knowledge that the struggle is yours alone, that you own it, that you choose it, that no one else profits from your pain. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But the greatest revenge isn't making others pay. It's building a life so beautiful that they realize exactly what they lost. It's being happy despite them, because of them, in spite of them. I don't hate James anymore. I don't hate Sarah. I don't think about them much at all. They've become characters in a story I tell myself sometimes, a cautionary tale about love and blindness and the price of trust. When I wake up now, in my apartment with its fresh paint and new beginnings, I feel my grandfather's presence, not as a ghost, but as a legacy. He taught me to hear birdsong when the world was too loud. He taught me to see stars when the night was too dark. And in the end, he taught me that sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself. My name is Emily, and this is my inheritance of truth. How much of yourself would you sacrifice before you realized no one has the right to ask for all of you? Would you have walked away too? Or would you have stayed, hoping they would change?